Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for today's Enterprise Ireland webinar, Innovation in the Ports Industry, a showcase of Irish capability. For those unfamiliar with Enterprise Ireland and the work that we do, we are the government organisation responsible for the development and growth of Irish enterprises in global markets, and we have offices in over 40 countries around the world. I joined Enterprise Ireland back in September in the London office, and I'm now working closely with Dara Cotter and Liam Curran, who lead the work of the Enterprise Ireland offshore wind cluster. Within the cluster, there is a distinct collective capability among Irish companies in the ports and harbours supply chain, and we're delighted to have 5 of these companies presenting with us today. As you can see on the next slide, presenting today, we have Martin McVicker, who's the CEO of CombiLift. We have Steve Gregan, who's the commercial manager at Byrne-Luby. We have Vincent Carey, who is the civil engineer at Inland and Coastal Marina Systems. We have Gavin McBride, who is an international business development manager at William O'Brien. And we have Ian Walter, who's the CEO at McVasa. Each speaker will have 10 to 12 minutes to present, after which there will be a short Q&A, time allowing, and the questions will be relayed by my colleagues Dara and Liam, who are monitoring the chat. Please feel free to submit questions to the speakers via the questions or chat tabs, which you will find on the sidebar to the right of your screen. If we don't get to all of the questions, we will be sure to pass them on to the speakers after the webinar. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Martin to begin his presentation.
Thank you, Jack. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Enterprise Ireland for giving CombiLift the opportunity to participate with the event. CombiLift, we're based in County Monaghan, so we're just about 5 miles south of the border with Northern Ireland. We're a manufacturing company, and we very much focus on manufacturing specialised material handling equipment. And for us as a business, we invest very heavily in R&D. So maybe next slide. In terms of the company, it's a privately owned business. Myself and my business partner, Robert Moffat, established it 22 years, going on 23 years ago now. We employ just over 650 people in our manufacturing plant, with another 100 employed overseas, of which we have 40 people employed in the UK market on the ground. Our revenue is just over 300 million euro, and our route to market is very much working through local service partners that are servicing customers at ports, etc. Just next slide, check. So with CombiLift as a company, we're very much export focused, but our UK is our #1 export market, and we treat it very much as our home market. It's on our doorstep. So next slide. And in terms of, with the business, this just gives you a quick snapshot. We established the company 23 years ago. Like most companies, the downturn in 08-09 did hit our business quite hard, or very hard, we would say. But thankfully, over the last number of years, we've managed to double our business every 5 years. This year's been another tough year. We're not going to grow as we anticipated, but we'll end up, our revenue will be very much equal to what it was in 2019. So next slide, please. So with, CombiLift, as I mentioned earlier, our UK is our #1 export market. We've more than 15,000 pieces of equipment operating in the market. And one of the things, we've often looked at is with our UK customers, it's a range from both small to large, but we do quite a lot of business across the port industry. So next slide. And in terms of probably the areas where our product brings benefit, even though we make forklift trucks and material handling equipment, we allow customers like you to save space, handle your products more safely, and enhance efficiency. That's really what our products bring value. And we have seen over the last number of years, and particularly with Brexit happening next year, the demand on warehouse storage is becoming more and more important, not just at ports, but for 3PLs or warehousing in general. But of course, as we all know, products have to come through ports to get to our consumers. So next page. So one of our product lines that, in terms of the business we have it's our Aisle-Master articulated forklift truck. And we can skip 2 slides, but with this model of product, it's like a regular forklift truck, but it articulates in the middle So it operates in a much smaller aisle than a conventional forklift truck. So a conventional forklift truck handling pallets would need an aisle of about 4 meter. A reach truck will need an aisle of 2.7 to 3 meter. Our Aisle-Master articulated forklift truck can work in aisles as narrow as down to 1.6 meter. So that's really what we're bringing value. We have forklift trucks that will work in smaller areas than conventional lifts. So the next slide. So in terms of very much, where we can demonstrate this value, we have a team in-house of warehouse design engineers. And what we do is we collaborate very closely with our customers. We will give you a drawing before and after, so it can be in a port area, either in one of your buildings or surrounding. And we'll actually put together a drawing showing how many more pallets can be stored in that warehouse if it was using our Aisle-Master narrow aisle piece of equipment. Next slide. And with the Aisle-Master, this product is designed that it can, and I'll run this video maybe. So with this product, it can operate in aisles as narrow as 1.6 meter. But the other big plus, it can store high. I mean, we've many operations in the UK where we warehouses we're storing product up to 15 meter lift height. And this little video shows you the flexibility. It's like a regular forklift truck, but the big plus is it also works in a narrow aisle, and the operating conditions do not have to be perfect, because we all know in many port areas you're working on existing locations. You maybe have an existing building where the floor is not perfect, and to get narrow aisle forklifts to operate is a challenge. But with the Aisle-Master product, it's designed with rubber tires, and with the rubber tires it can operate both indoor and outdoor, and that's the great flexibility. So it allows you to bring product very much from trailer to rack, and we see that as an opportunity for companies in the port that are particularly in that storage sector and have a demand on the use of storage space. But the flexibility, you're using the one truck to bring the product straight from rack to truck or from rack to the yard area. We'll go to the next slide. So in terms of probably that's one of our verticals is the narrow aisle pallet storage. We have another product range. It's the CombiLift multi-directional forklift truck. So they're designed to handle long goods. That can be packs of timber, steel. This photograph is with a company in the UK, Rex Shipping, and handling packs of timber. But you can see in their warehouse, they've put in cantilever racking. They've narrowed the aisles down to less than 3 meters. So they're actually storing packs of timber in aisles less than 3 meter, and they're going to quite high lift heights. Next slide. And Rex Shipping is just an example of one company in that sector, but the big plus, the justification for them as a business was it allowed them to double their storage. And that's really what we're doing. Even though we're selling forklift trucks, we're actually selling warehouse space. And anyone you're being challenged from a storage point of view or getting long product into a building, that's where the CombiLift multi-directional vehicles can bring real value for money. Next slide. So with this is just another example of companies at ports using our products for handling timber. Another is International Timber is a great client of ours, part of the Saint-Gobain group. They've been using CombiLifts for many years. Next slide. And they're very much using packs of timber very much from dock to warehouse storage. This photograph at Grangemouth Port. We'll just go to the next slide. So with the International Timber or Rex Shipping, and we just picked a couple of examples here in Travis Perkins. So this just gives some of the locations shown on the map are actually, one is just showing International Timber and Rex Shipping. We've many more units with companies like Travis Perkins. So companies in port areas handling long products have found real value with our multi-directional vehicles. Like a great example more closer to home to our plant is Warren Point Port, where they're actually operating 3 CombiLift vehicles for handling long steel tubing. They're importing tubing in from Turkey for one of their clients. So they're actually using CombiLift vehicles to store more of that steel tubing into the existing warehouse. Next slide. And with them, if you take in terms of, it's not just in the UK, but of course I know our webinar is very focused in the UK, but for CombiLift as a company, we do business with many ports around the world. This photograph is an example with the Port of Conel in Chile, where they operate multiple CombiLifts handling timber. And even in that area, it does not mean you don't necessarily have to incorporate racking into your buildings. The CombiLift vehicles will allow you to store much more timber into your existing warehouses, even without having to invest in racking. Next slide. And if you take in terms of, the example in Chile, this is another example in Romania. So if we could play this video, this is with a company called Fast Freight, and they're based in Romania, but they operate multiple units of combi lift vehicles. So here you can see they operate very close to a port area. And with the combi lift vehicles, they have the multi-directional forklift trucks allow them to handle the long goods laterally. And this is an example of a 14-ton capacity combi lift handling steel, so very much taking the product straight from the dock area into the building, and then it's maximizing the storage space within that area, because we all know in ports it's a high moving operation. Here they operate multiple combi lifts, bringing the product into the warehouse, but it's amazing how much extra storage these vehicles can bring. And I know in many cases selectivity may not be so crucial because some of your customers are moving high volume, but you do see more and more of your customers are taking in more SKUs. And the real value of the combi lift not only allows you to store more, but it improves selectivity. And when you combine the use of combi lift vehicles with cantilever racking, that can bring even more value to clients. And for us as a business, if any of your facilities you feel challenged with from a space utilization, getting more product into the building, let us know, and we'd love to come on site and work with you closely. Next slide, please. So in terms of this, probably snapshot gives you a quick snapshot of a little station comparing a regular forklift truck. And we all know regular forklift trucks, if you need to handle long goods, you need to lift them up high. There's a lot of airplaning, moving them around. While with a combi lift vehicle, the operator can pick up the long pack of timber, steel, lower it down and travel laterally. Next slide. And with them, this is just some other examples, and we can even bring added value. We can incorporate guide rollers, so the unit can actually operate between the cantilever rack and very narrow aisles, but also at high speed because the truck is actually rail guided as such. Next slide. In terms of where we demonstrate that value, a little bit like the aisle master, we work closely with clients. So if you can give us a drawing or welcome us on site, we'll do a drawing before and after in terms of the value we can bring. Next slide. And for us, I mean, it's the additional product we can get into them buildings is what brings value for you as a port operator. And then of course we do realize in ports it's not just all timber, steel, pallet goods. You have to deal with some long, awkward goods. And of course, great example is the wind industry. I know Jack was referring to earlier, the growth in that sector. Many ports have been asked, have they the ability to bring in blades, have the ability to bring in wind towers? And with the combi lift vehicles, we have a lot of possibilities there for handling long, heavy, awkward loads. Next slide. And with them, we can analyze it. Next slide. So we can analyze, look at the port area, prepare a drawing, and actually not just getting additional storage, but even improving the flow at the port. So using combi lift vehicles, we can make that more efficient. That the products, we often use the term ABC, the fast moving goods more closer to where your transport is. Next slide. And just in terms of, and maybe play the video. So on this here just gives you a quick video of some of these products that we have available for handling long, awkward loads. This is an example of one of our load carriers. We've designed this solely for the wind industry. I know this is at our plant where we were doing some testing. So with this attachment, we've designed a multi-directional unit. It's based on a 3-wheel design. It can operate in a carousel mode, so it's very maneuverable. So it's very much, it's a mobile unit. It can work indoor, outdoor. It can pick up heavy goods left, on either side, transport them from A to B. And we know, like if you take the wind industry, we're all dealing with long, awkward loads. But we have designed these systems using a load carrier and a dolly on the other side where we can transport them in tandem. And like we've many of these units already operating with many of the large blade manufacturers, turbine manufacturers such as Siemens, Vestas, MHA. And this is just some examples of them actually operating on different sites currently. And if you take in terms of we see more and more there's a demand where these products are being imported into ports, and many companies are challenged. How are they going to move these blades around on site? So we'd love to work with you, and we're willing to customize our products around handling any of your long and awkward good handling needs. Next slide. And just in terms of, there's an example, I think this might have been with Nordex in Germany a few years ago. So we have different configurations we can use. A lifting system, and we have like MGs, we call them mobile gantry cranes. So we have a lot of possibilities for moving anything related to the wind industry, and we offer in capacities up to 150-ton capacity today. Next slide. And it's not just in the wind industry, in the oil sector, there's many other industries that of course are handling long and heavy goods. Of course, ports, like many other sectors, there's a lot of challenges coming down the road. We talked earlier about handling the components necessary for the wind sector. Of course, Brexit's happening very soon in the next few weeks. So we do realize that ports are definitely, you're going to be the first port of call when companies want to get more product in, and they'll ask you in many cases, can you store it for them while they are not ready for it? So the pressure comes back on ports, and of course, if you can store more as a business, you can charge more for that. So that's where we're convinced our product can bring value for you as a port operator. Next slide. And just in terms of, some of the different, if you look, the development of free port status, and I think those of you in this sector are very familiar with it, where manufacturing plants want to get closer to the port to avail of the benefits of a free port status. But of course, that all means the demand for warehouse space is going to become more of a premium. And we see the UK economy as a market where there's going to be a lot of manufacturing is going to be taking place going forward to be more sustainable as an economy. So the demand for not just port space, but the area around the port is going to become more and more valuable. And I'd like to finish off with the last slide here, which just gives you a little summary of probably for us what we as a company can do for you as a potential client. If you're challenged from a space utilization, space availability, a handling issue, handling long awkward goods, or efficiencies, just lift the phone, give us a call. We have enough of our team on the ground in the UK. We're more than happy to visit you on site, safely, of course, as we all have to be during COVID-19. Visit you on site, look at the challenges that you're encountering. We will prepare free warehouse design and yard layout, which is very much a free consultancy service. We'll come back, make the proposal, and hopefully together we find a solution that brings real value for you as our customer, not just for now, but into the future. So I'd like to finish at that, and I hope I haven't ran over too much there. So,
Martin, that's perfect. Thank you very much for that. You're perfectly on time. So what we'll do, guys, if you have a question for Martin, put it in the chat, please, and we'll follow up on those at the end. Martin, really interesting to see your capability in terms of ports as well, because you actually have a port design capability which facilitates the movement of those kind of large components of the offshore wind industry, like blades and towers and so on. We've seen some examples of that. That's a really innovative service to have alongside the products that you're offering as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. I mean, the finished product is what we manufacture in the plant, but it's very much that consultancy service. And we're even using, with our engineers, we've 10 engineers in-house that we prepare these free warehouse layouts, yard layouts, but we're using very simple software using Google SketchUp. We will prepare an animation and using Google Maps. So we'll take a map of your port originally. Using Google SketchUp, we'll prepare an animation incorporating our product. So you can make it very visual, because we all know in a port application, you have so many different clients, and making that visual, because in many cases, you're actually selling to your clients what your port can do, which can actually bring real value for your clients. So we're happy to collaborate with you as a port operator, and even to collaborate with your clients as well to make that presentation as positive for us all as possible.
That's great. Thank you very much, Martin. Okay, I'm going to hand back to Jack now, and next up we have Bornalubi. Jack.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Liam. And yes, as Liam said, we'll now move on to Bernluby rather. Steve, would you like to take over?
Sure. Do you want to go to the first slide there, Jack? Great. As introduced, I'm Steve Gregan, the Group Commercial Manager for Bernluby, and I'll be presenting Bernluby's role in port innovation as an Irish engineering consultancy. Next slide there, Jack. Cheers. Just a quick introduction. There's quite a few slides to get through, so I'll try and move quite quickly so we can have a couple of questions at the end. So I'll commence with the short. Sorry, just go back to the previous one there, Jack. Yeah, so I'll commence with a short introduction of Bernluby, followed by the UK sector offering, and then more specifically our marine sector offering. I'll focus on the ports, the UK port industry challenges, and then chat a bit about how this drives the opportunity for innovation. And then finally, I'll provide examples where Bernluby as a company have provided innovation in practice as well as in the port environment, and then some specific examples around projects where we've demonstrated innovation to either save cost or program. So on the next one there, Jack. So just a quick sales pitch on Bernluby. As mentioned, we're an international engineering and environmental consultancy with design and project management capability. We're headquartered in Ireland with 4 offices in Ireland, 7 offices in the UK, and 3 in the Middle East. We have a team of over 250 skilled professionals which provide industry-leading solutions for complex, large-scale infrastructure projects over the full project delivery lifecycle. We are adept at creating and delivering solutions across 8 key industry sectors, namely water, marine, civil, geotechnics, building, conservation, environmental, and temporary works. Across all these sectors, we provide extensive digital engineering, including BIM and other digital project management, information management, 3D design, and 3D coordination services. Our intelligent 3D models give validation, design, and construction management, planning, and delivery. Our interconnected skill sets across these 8 sectors allow us to provide an offering that ensures state-of-the-art delivery of solutions to all of our clients, which are practical and value-focused at all stages of the project, from planning and feasibility all the way through to construction. Bernluby are comfortable working from an early stage through the construction on either the client side or supporting design and build initiatives on the contractor side. Through the wider Bernluby group, we also have the capability through Terra Consult, which offers capabilities in contaminated land, waste management, and earth sciences. Jack, next slide there. I think I lost you guys there. I'll carry on. So this slide here demonstrates our UK sector and subsector leads, which cover those 8 sectors that I referred to, as well as some of the subsectors in terms of waste and the digital engineering. And these directors are distributed across our 7 offices in the UK. Bernluby is also ISO, RISQS, and Construction Line Gold certified. Next slide there, Jack. Great. So Bernluby, just a quick overview in terms of our marine capability. Bernluby have worked with some of the largest national and international port owners, operators, and marine contractors. I've listed a few of them there just for interest's sake. You know, these are a list of Saudi Aramco, DP World, Abu Dhabi Ports, BAM, Murphy's, McLaughlin and Harvey. So we do, as I mentioned, we are happy to work both client side as well as a lot of the work we do is for the contractors as well. Specific to the marine sector, we provide a wide range of offerings. Just to name a few of these, consents and licensing at a very early stage, supporting clients, master planning, terminal design, marine structural design, looking at ways that we can reduce CapEx and OpEx costs, as well as trying to establish what those are at a very early stage for the client. We also have, which I'll discuss in the next few slides, a very strong internal or in-house numerical modeling capability. And at the end of the slide, or at the end of the presentation, there'll be a full detailed marine sector brochure, which will be circulated to all the participants, which will have a full array of our marine consultancy services. So this is really the nuts and bolts of why we, what Bernluby do in terms of what we can offer the clients. So through our own research, discussions with various UK clients, and attending conferences and workshops, we feel that we've got a good understanding of what the challenges are that the UK port industry is facing. I've provided this slide as a short summary or a brief high-level look at these challenges, which I'm pretty sure the majority of the audience are aware of. But just to hone in on some of them, To summarize a few of these at the high level, obviously Brexit, as was mentioned in the previous slide, is obviously an uncertainty that we would need to navigate through. And Bernlubi is working with some clients to try and assist with those changes through port developments, etc. Another one is the introduction and the community influence of freeports and how that's going to influence the surrounding areas. Implementing digital technologies into ports to drive efficiency and how we incorporate that into our future designs and current designs, as well as the focus towards delivering more sustainable ports and achieving key sustainability goals. So Bernlubi, with our environmental and conservation teams, we are working with a number of owners and operators in the UK, where we're trying to help them to achieve the sustainability goals. And I'll speak about a sustainability model that we've developed in the next few slides. We're also working with clients to reduce their environmental impacts within the ports, as well as there's the opportunity to work with the clients in terms of planning and development of general upgrade and expansion of existing and future port facility infrastructures, looking at the renewable sector, etc., and then just your general upgrades to accommodate larger and bigger vessels. So Bernlubi essentially has been working and supporting port owners and developers and operators around the world to address these challenges. And through this, we've really found an opportunity to embrace these challenges as a perfect opportunity for us to work with clients to introduce innovative solutions, which I'll describe in the next few slides. Jack, just next slide there. There we go. So one of the areas we found where we can really provide innovative solutions to the clients is through our in-house numerical modeling team. Now we use MicDHI with a number of additional suites and packages such as Ecolab and a number of other ones that we couple with that package. And we found with the introduction of having an in-house numerical modeling team, we're able to inform and set up models that can inform the hydrodynamic conditions of the actual project site, which we can then feed in directly into the design as we developing it from a very early stage in the design. So we are developing models at the concept stage, which we then enhance as additional information and site data is obtained. We then feed that directly into our numerical or into our structural design teams, so that at the same time, while we're refining the hydrodynamic conditions, we're also optimizing the design. And we found that that's been able to give us a real advantage in terms of future-proofing and optimizing that design. We're also able to reduce the risk of abortive work and over-design potentially. And in general, that adds a lot of value to the client, where we can actually physically show them what the hydrodynamics are in the area, show them how the marina is flushing, for instance, or how the outfall is performing in terms of achieving environmental requirements, etc. So that's having that internal team, I think, really does give us an advantage over some of the other competitors. And we found, obviously, with having that in-house team, we can provide that around the world. Another one that we've been doing, where we found a lot of value, particularly more recently, is in the development of 3D module visualization. So we're working with a lot of clients, particularly developers, actually, where we actually visualize in the facility from a very early stage. We build it up either using Revit or a number of other packages and suites that we use, and it gives the client really the opportunity to see what he's actually investing in, and it allows us to, again, make very early decisions where we can identify risk, what works, what doesn't work, where could there potentially be the clash. And it helps us as designers to rationalize that at a very early stage and really explain it to the client in terms of why we're making certain decisions and what impact that has on the actual design itself. Often it's a bit of an additional cost that we would bring in at the design stage, but we find in having those visuals allows us to save a lot of time and money in the long run. And that's something that we're, it's an ever-evolving capability, which we then incorporate into our BIM offerings as well, in terms of building information management. And a lot of it in the future will come down to, we'd use that same model for asset management of a key wall, etc., when it comes down to operations and maintenance. Just on the next slide there, Jack. Great. So where I'd say we've seen the most value contribution through innovation is through our geotechnical designs. Bernlubi historically was a geotechnical company 25 years ago, and through that we've obviously built up the other sectors that we offer. But it's always been the core of our business, and we have around 80 specialist geotechnical and marine structural engineers across the UK and Ireland, who have a very strong technical competency to critically evaluate complex material parameters and site investigation data to develop efficient ground models. And we found that through the understanding of these efficiencies, we are able to leverage the high-end finite element modeling packages that we have in-house to develop innovative geotechnical designs. Using the likes of Plaxis 3D, 2D, GeoStudio, GeoSlope, when we're doing the design for offshore and onshore structures, our teams have been able to develop smart solutions by reducing, for instance, reducing the wall thickness, the levels, embedment depths, backfill material required, etc. And this is a direct cost savings for the client as well as often for the program as well. And I'll explain a few examples later on in the presentation where we've actually demonstrated that on some projects. Then, just as a business, we invest heavily on state-of-the-art software, and we recognize the value that state-of-the-art software can bring to the engineers, to the clients, to the contractors, and we constantly upgrading our systems and bringing in new software. We feel that it can suit or it can where we found a huge amount of cost saving. Bernluby's engineers themselves essentially are client focused and solution driven. We use these complex softwares to reduce capex and opex costs, which is a direct tangible benefit that we see in from the client, and that's essentially what they're looking for. We minimize the downtime, we increase throughput. We can use the software to provide confidence in feasibility plans and return on investment estimates. It's not so much around always being used for the design, but we need to look at what is the bigger picture, the broader outcome that we're trying to achieve for the client. And these are the type of things where we use the software to actually develop tangible benefit, which can be reached either through cost savings or program savings. We pride ourselves in having technical engineers that have a very strong capability to understand buildable solutions as well. And through the experience of working with contractors on a number of design and build, large design and build, marine and port building and marine and port opportunities, we understand what goes into building these facilities, and we make sure that what we're designing can actually be built in practice. Just the next slide there, Jack. Right, and as I mentioned when I was just giving a high level on the UK challenges and opportunities, sustainability is one of the major ones. I'd say it has come up a lot of the times over a number of conferences over the last couple of years. So Bernluby, in terms of trying to tackle the key challenge of sustainability in the UK ports, we've developed a sustainability model which we use across all of our projects. This model provides a process against which key metrics are scored and reported to the client to ensure sustainability is at the forefront of all design development. The model is designed to complement the principles set out in the 6 capitals model, i.e. creating a model where the holistic influence and value of financial, manufactured, intellectual, human, social, and natural capital is understood and also used to inform decision-making process. The table that I've provided here provides examples of project-level metrics we have developed and tracked with clients in the UK port industry across the 6 reporting capitals. And I won't go into those in more detail. I'm sure they'll be circulated so clients and operators can have a look at them. But this is an ever-evolving table sustainability model that we're working with operators and owners to evaluate, to measure, to monitor, to see how we can try and achieve not only the company's sustainability goals, but also the UN sustainability goals as well as the UK. Just on the next slide there.
1 minute to finish, please, Steve.
Sure. All right.
Thank you.
So here's just some of the examples that I've provided in terms of what we've provided for the clients to try and reduce their environmental impacts. So we would work with operators and owners to assess their direct impacts, to develop designs and specifications which utilize renewable energies and green technologies, such as using high LED, high mast lighting, efficient fuel machinery and equipment, and smart logistics. We also develop and collaborate with clients and their partners across the industry to drive policies and actions. I'll give you just, Jack, if you just go on to the 3rd slide, I'll give you there's 2 large projects I'd like to demonstrate before I end. If you just go on to, I think, slide 14. There's about 7 slides here with 2 projects each. There's about 8 different examples of where we've demonstrated innovation on projects. So I'll close with not the next one, but the next one there, Jack, if you don't mind. So that's Dublin Master Plan, which we've done some work on, Greenall Port. But I just want to bring up the 2 large projects that we've worked with Here we go. So these are two projects that we worked on directly with Saudi Aramco in Saudi Arabia. Both of them, the first one was a logistics study where we worked with Saudi Aramco and Wood Group to look at the logistics around the onshore and offshore movement of ships, not only within the port, but also the landside infrastructure for road networks and rail networks between a steel mill and the offshore ports. We looked at transshipment options, and that was a really great project for us, where we introduced software to look at the mobility around the port infrastructure, so that we could have some level of confidence to achieve the 25% early feed capex objectives. And then another one there is Ras Tanura, where we worked with Huta and Saudi Aramco and Wood Group to develop it was a berth deepening, and we came up with some smart solutions in terms of key walls. We were able to effectively push the wall forward, get it down to its depth, but also integrate the existing wall without having to remove it, where we tied it into the future wall. So that was two quick examples there where we really saved the client significant money and gave them the confidence to be able to move forward with these projects. So I have this slide, I think, or sorry, the presentation, I think, will be circulated. So there's about another, I'd say, 10 different examples, which I had no intention of going through today, given the time. But if you want to, please have a look through those slide decks, and you'll see some examples that you can then give me a shout if you want to know a bit more about it, or if there's any opportunities or projects where you want me to help out. Or yeah.
Steve, that's great. Thank you very much. And as you say, the slides will be available for circulation, so people will be able to have a look at those examples of the work you've done there, and they can get in contact with you if they're interested. Okay, great. We need to move on to inland and coastal marina systems. Jack, you might have that ready, please.
Absolutely. I'll hand you straight over to Vincent Carey from Inland and Coastal Marina Systems.
Thanks, Mil, Jack. Just firstly, thanks, Mil, to Enterprise Ireland for the opportunity to present ourselves here. We've been working with Enterprise Ireland for a good number of years now, and they've been just key to helping us bring our offering to new markets. So next slide, please, Jack. So just firstly, a very brief overview of Inland and Coastal and where we came from. We were established in Banagher in the middle of Ireland back in 1990. We initially started, I suppose, building inland pontoon jobs on the River Shannon, and over the last number of years we've developed into getting the opportunity to work on major marine projects in UK and Greece, as far away as abroad as Mexico and Seychelles, and most recently Australia, where we were fortunate enough to be involved in a project exporting 5 and 6 meter wide concrete breakwater units. So I suppose a good kind of development we've seen over the last number of years. Next slide, please, Jack. We carry out the majority of our own design in-house. We've quite a capable design team, qualifications in civil engineering, mechanical engineering. We from initial assessments of sites all the way through to product specifications and specific designs of pontoons and mooring systems, really to give ports and harbour customers really a full suite of development opportunities that we can help them with, right from consultancy all the way through to implementation. So next slide, please, Jack. So it's just a graphic, I suppose, illustrating really what our core principles are. Really at the heart of everything is the customer, and it's your requirements which drive our decision-making processes. This is backed up by our investment in our people. Really, I suppose, we're as good as our people are, and we're very fortunate to have a very, very good design team working around us, and it helps us to drive the company on and bring on innovation in all of our products and developments. So health and safety and environment, I suppose, are also very key elements, and we consider not just in specifying out our projects, but also in how we aim to build the future of the company as well. So backing this up is our involvement in the CBIN project. We are the UK and Irish distributors for the CBIN, which is a great product helping to clean up our ports and our harbours. Next slide, please, Jack. So just I'm briefly going to go through, I suppose, what we can offer you in terms of some project examples. So beginning with kind of, I suppose, the typical use cases we see for ports and harbours and what people are trying to achieve. So all the way from leisure berthing, cruise ship tenders, ferry vessels, all the way up to most recently the wind farm developments and berthing for crew transfer vessels, which really is, I suppose, where we see the biggest and more interesting projects coming over the next number of years. So this covers everything really from 40-foot leisure boats and yachts all the way up to 1,000-ton commercial boats and dredgers. So next one, Jack. So the solutions we offer really are based on what the requirements are. So for smaller and lighter vessels, we have our leisure pontoon system, and it can handle up to 40-ton vessels typically. More for sheltered harbors, up to a half-meter wave height typically. The next step up from that is our heavy-duty pontoon. It can accommodate up to 110-ton vessels, slightly more exposed environments as well. It can handle up to maybe a 0.8-meter wave typically. CCUs are continuous concrete units. They would be what we would term mini breakwaters. They're heavy-duty systems, can berth vessels up to about 300 tons. And then we have our big boys, which are our breakwaters, anything up to 6 meters wide, could be 80 tons each, and designed for up to 1,000-ton vessels. Next slide, please, Jack. So leisure berthing. So I suppose just to go through some of the challenges that we see, and the projects will hopefully demonstrate how we have approached trying to get around those challenges. So in the leisure berthing industry or leisure industry, what we're seeing is typically it's a wide variety of vessels, anything from 40-ton, which would be the upper size of your typical leisure boats, up as far as your super yachts, which seem to be kind of an increasing demand, which we see coming online. So trying to accommodate all these vessels in a certain area is one challenge, and trying to say attenuate waves coming in to make sure that the harbour is a nice calm environment for the berthing is another big challenge. So next slide, please, Jack. So like I said, just to go through a few examples of where we've had certain challenges and how we've kind of looked to overcome them. So the first item is Poolbeg Marina in Dublin Port. Is obviously a very busy environment. The marina is located directly across from some of the largest berths in Dublin Port. So the outside line of pontoons here is concrete breakwater units, 4 meters wide, which are to provide some attenuation of vessel wakes and provide a calm in interior as well. So quite the inner berths then built from our leisure pontoon range, so a kind of good mix of products. I suppose a testament to quality and the strength of the units. The breakwaters have taken a few taps from some of those larger vessels over the years, and other than some kind of minor small maintenance, they're still there and operating absolutely perfectly, almost 20 years on. So next slide, please, Jack. So again, another site, maybe a little slightly warmer climate. This is a project we completed a few years ago in Mexico. We built the outer breakwater. It's in an enclosed harbour, but still gets quite a choppy environment. So I suppose what we can demonstrate here is not only can we use these breakwater units to provide a nice, calm, sheltered environment, but they're also great as berthing opportunities for larger vessels. So again, like I mentioned, the likes of super yachts, quite common along that coast, and it's just one of the options and one way to develop, what available water space that there is. Next slide, please, Jack. So another requirement we've seen, I suppose, a lot of increasing demand over the last few years is cruise ship and tender and ferry berthing. So it's one way that I suppose you can encourage quite a significant boost to local communities and economies if you can encourage cruise ships to visit with kind of relatively little capital investment in the first place. These are quite relatively small projects, but can kind of put a smaller port or harbour on the map in a large way. So some of the challenges to develop these, obviously lots of passengers, you need a high live load capacity for these, good grip underfoot, and then making sure there's no gaps or trip hazards. You would often find there's a lot of less able-bodied persons using these facilities, so has to be kind of front and foremost of the mind. Typically freeboards for pontoons between kind of 0.5 meter really up as far as a meter, depending on specific vessel requirements, and fender systems, which are very specific to vessels using them. So next slide, please, Jack. Thanks. So again, just an example of such a pontoon. This is New Haven Harbour in Edinburgh, which we completed for Freeports a number of years ago. It's a dual-use pontoon, so you have on one side the cruise tender berthing, and then a dedicated berth for a ferry vessel on the opposite side. A metre freeboard pontoon, and the decking here is a GRC concrete decking, which we manufacture ourselves. Very high grip and gives confidence underfoot, makes a pontoon quite stable in the water because it's that much more kind of mass to it than your typical timber decking. Has a very, very long design life as well. So one of our key aspects when we're looking at projects is trying to make sure that you're not going to be looking at maintenance in 10 or 15 years time to replace decking, things like that. I suppose we always want to design something with not just a 25-year design life, but a 25 years of low maintenance and no issues really. Next slide, please, Jack. Another example is the ferry berth in the Hayling Harbour, or sorry, in Langston Harbour in Hayling Island. It's a regular ferry which departs the pontoon roughly every hour in pretty much every weather condition you can imagine. Has a waiting shelter on the pontoon, so you know the pontoons they're quite flexible. We would look at to approach any project with, I suppose, an open mind. There's very little that we consider we can't do. So you know, the likes of putting on fuel systems for you know, visiting harbour vessels to fuel up, waiting shelters. You know, there really is no issues. We're very flexible. Every project we do is very much customer focused, and our product range is really, I suppose, is bespoke to each requirement and not just an off-the-shelf standard product. Next slide, please, Jack. Dartmouth, the town jetty in Dartmouth. So I suppose would be one of our keystone projects. We developed this back about 4 or 5 years ago from an existing pontoon. It was a redevelopment. Has a metre freeboard and designed for 110 ferry vessel, 110 ton displacement ferry vessel. Very high live load capacity, 4 kilonewtons. Basically designed for crowds of people coming off and disembarking vessels at the same time. So very, very high strength. And I suppose what we're most pleased about this particular job is that the Harbour Commissioners, the Harbour Authority, have come back to us repeatedly over the last number of years. We've done 5 or 6 projects, and we were actually currently working with them on a new project. So I suppose we consider the biggest compliment we can get is when people come back for repeat business, and I suppose it's one that we're very, very proud of. So next slide, please, Jack. So another use case we're seeing is our commercial vessels and other heavy work vessels. I suppose quite typical to most ports and harbours. Yeah, anything from 40 ton in the line of maybe pilot boats up to 1,000 ton. We designed a breakwater not so long ago for a dredger. We haven't built it yet, but fingers crossed we'll get to build that in the near future. Freeboards on these pontoons, again, up to 1.5 meters. One of our kind of, I suppose, our unique selling points is we can accommodate pretty much any freeboard once we have enough space to put in a wider pontoon if needed. Again, minimal downtime on the pontoons is a higher requirement. These are in constant use, and like I said before, you know, all of these products really are very, very bespoke. So we can take whatever your requirements are and try and make something work for you. So, next slide, please, Jack.
Vincent, about 3 minutes left, please.
Okay, cheers. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
So a project in Scotland we've recently done. Breakwater berthing. It's designed for a 30-meter long workboat. On this, just one of the challenges we faced was a bed falling away from the shore, so we had to do a very, very specific design to accommodate the variety of levels and just ensure that the tension in each of the lines, which is mooring chain, was all the same throughout. Next slide, please, Jack. Another breakwater project in Sligo in Ireland. So a 1/2 meter freeboard, heavy duty pile brackets, as you can see. This pontoon really has, I suppose, multi-use. harbour vessels, visiting vessels as well. It's quite popular. Next slide, please, Jack. Portland Port, again, another heavy-duty steel pontoon, meter freeboard used for pilot boats. Again, I suppose a very nice reference. We get a lot of repeat custom because of how happy the customer was with this project. So next slide, please. So fishing fleets. So yeah, again, one of the bigger requirements we have is for fishing fleets. We've developed fishing fleets or pontoons for many of the fishery harbour centres around Ireland, Castleton, Bear, Dunmore East, Howth, Killybegs. Typically, it's our heavy-duty pontoon system, which is used, which you'll see in the following slides. Next slide, please, Jack. So starting off, I suppose, is more of a breakwater, very large vessels, 68-metre long fishing vessel in Ardine Point in Scotland, developed for Scottish salmon. Very interesting mooring system on this, about 14 metres of depth underneath these pontoons. 32 number mooring chains totaling about 80 tonne of steel, keeping that pontoon and that boat there. Quite a challenging environment with about a metre of a wave coming into that during bad weather conditions. Next slide, please, Jack. So this is a project in Jersey. So a combination of our heavy-duty pontoons and our continuous concrete units. As you can see on the image, we can locate piled internally on the concrete units to provide clear berthing faces and gives you berthing in harsher conditions, and in this case for vessels up to about 120 tonne out there. Next slide, please, Jack. Dunmore East was one of our first heavy-duty pontoon jobs. Again, fishery harbour centre in Ireland. So this is where we really kind of developed our heavy-duty offering, which has become one of our most popular products and can cater for a wide variety of uses and is still quite an economical pontoon system to build. Next slide, please, Jack. Similarly, in Howth Harbour, same type of pontoon system. One of the challenges here was the kind of tight space in the corner and multi-use. This is both for fishing vessels and for leisure vessels as well. Next slide, Jack.
1 minute to finish there, Vincent, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll quickly run through the CTVs, and I suppose, like I said earlier, one of our kind of most recent requirements is the development of wind farms and requirement for crew chance for vessel berthing. We've done a number of these projects over a number of years, and we are currently in negotiations for a few. So very novel systems. It's tend to be very much an all-in-one project, including all the services that go along with the pontoons. So next slide, please, Jack. To go quickly through a few examples. Aberdeen Harbour, this was for Vattenfall, 75-tonne vessels using the facility. Interesting job with 1 metre diameter piles, which were about 24 metres long, and we had to install with a jack-up barge. So we have capabilities to design everything from moorings through to the actual pontoons themselves. Next slide, Jack. Fraser Harbour, one of our more recently completed ones, including a full kind of self-service system of 40,000 litre fuel system, potable water supply. Really key to all of these jobs is 25-year design life and 24/7 non-stop usage with as little maintenance as possible. So we're quite comfortable in offering that. Next slide, Jack. And one that we're in the midst of completing will be complete early in January next year for Cobra. You can actually see the Vattenfall pontoon in the background there. Similarly, again, 1.2 metre freeboard, and again for CTVs in the region of 75 tonnes. Next slide, Jack. So one last project to go, I suppose, to highlight. The RNLI pontoon, we're building one just now in Dunmore East. Next slide, Jack. So very specific requirements, I suppose, for RNLI. This is the first time we've attempted a tubular pontoon. These are designed 1.5 metre diameter tubular floats, a 900 mil freeboard, and I suppose it's a 92 tonne. It's a very much a custom project. We haven't done one of these before. It's soon to be completed with a 32 metre bridge going to sit on top of it. So a very nice project to get to work on. If maybe you skip through to the last slide, please, Jack. Yeah, just some of the other products and innovations we can offer. Anything from dinghy storage in the bottom left to one of the other kind of popular options now is houseboats, like the nice in Chichester, your residential type, to your kind of temporary accommodation, which is in Lagavulin for anybody who's interested in some whiskey and the sights of Islay. It's a nice place to visit. So that's all from me.
Vincent, thank you very much. Again, if people have questions, we can put you in contact with Vincent, and we move on straight away, Jack, I think, to Gavin from William O'Brien.
We will indeed. Go ahead, Gavin. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Enterprise Ireland, for giving William O'Brien the opportunity to showcase our service offering. We've worked extensively with Enterprise Ireland over the last number of years, and really invaluable for participation internationally, and thank you again. Next slide, please, there, if you would, Jack. Thank you. So William O'Brien, we were incorporated in 1955, so we're 65 years in business, and we primarily work within the construction and the marine business. And what we pride ourselves on is being the power behind your heavy lift solutions. We are project planners, problem solvers, and we would like to get to the status of trusted partners. We work extensively throughout the world. We are currently working in Morocco. We're also working in Egypt, and we're working in Australia on the construction of port cranes. And to do this, we offer really 3 indicative lines. So initially we have the planning. So we put planning into place, and that's including port facilities. It's including the likes of working instructions and various different elements that go into the requirements for either offshore wind construction or which is one of our major items that we're targeting, and we have a lever crane construction. We partner locally, so economic development is extremely important to us, and by partnering with ports externally and also with local partnerships and subcontracting, we look at the economic development for the area and the local content, which are very important, specifically with the likes of ScotWind and other areas when you're considering working there. We bring innovation in because with innovation, a service offering is differentiated, and we do this obviously through looking at the requirements that are looked for in ports, everything from swept path analysis within existing constraints of ports, and also how we can bring better service. Next slide there, please, if you would, Jack. The challenges. So what we do is we manage large cranes and equipment and personnel, and we do that really in the port for yourselves. So what we will do is we will take an ACAD drawing of your port, and we will make an assumption looking at the likes of your existing interface, be it the likes of lever LLC cranes or a planned external crane to come into your port. We will look at the likes of ground bearing pressures, and we will manage large cranes and equipment and really make it suitable for equipment and personnel within the constraints of the port itself. To do this, on the second line, we have working instructions. So obviously the working instructions will be there from the likes of OEMs, and I believe some of them were mentioned from an offshore wind perspective a little bit earlier on. So the likes of your GE, the likes of your MHI Vestas, and the likes of your SGRE. So we take the likes of those documents and we bring them into a real life site perspective and carry out a survey, and we look at a gap analysis and see what we can do for you with that. Obviously, we use EHS management implementation. So we work particularly for the likes of the UK quite closely with the HSE. There are LOLA regulations and the likes of BS 7121 that we adhere quite closely to, and you must have the likes of your documentation approved by the HSE, and that is something that we work on and implement on a daily basis. We make sure that there is a good defined budget and that time overruns really don't take place. And this is through the likes of project management, and it's implemented on an extension of time basis that we can really record everything that occurs from start to finish within the requirements for the project that we're executing. And we try and really eliminate out of scope works. This comes through planning, so we would like to consider that before we even set foot in the likes of your port, for the likes of a constructability perspective, that we would have a lot of the planning based and as much of the out of scope works eliminated as possible. So next slide there, please, Jack. Services that we provide. So turnkey heavy solutions are really it. An example of this is in the US at the minute. We're currently working in a number of ports, and it carries out an assessment for requirements of the existing cranes that are in our port and the cranes that we're going to input in there. The second part of that is kind of constructability studies, where we take, say, the kilonewtons per meter squared limitations that are in the port. So sometimes the requirement can be for up to 150 kilonewtons, and then we look at the distance that we can go from the edge of the port or the pier, and we construct before any equipment is ordered and any equipment is provided to site a detailed lift plan of what's going to happen on site, with the maximized lift obviously being the target, so we can ascertain the equipment that's going to be required for it. We've heavy lift equipment and additional equipment here that are available anytime through the likes of our global partnership. We project manage a lot of this really within Ireland and the UK, and really it's about knowing the local content and requirements that makes this key. Our engineering department is quite robust. We specialise with lever cranes from the port assembly perspective, but also from the likes of crawler and sometimes with the wheel cranes as well. And the specialised person we have on board, we would have appointed persons. We have vast health and safety experience, and working in the UK is really something that is a massive target for ourselves, and extending in it with the company. So next slide there, please, Jack. So port solutions. What we'd like to do is we'd like to offer really complete craneage and equipment, project management, or as it's now called, is hub management, engineering and site supervision solutions. And these would include the correct use of craneage. So that's very important, because the likes of craneage within a port, if you're using one specific manufacturer or another manufacturer to actually do the same lifting, because of the dynamic loadings within the port, the actual type and weights of the cranes and the ballast and the configurations that are in use, sometimes you can actually increase the kilonewton per meter squared loading on your ports really by a change of equipment. So not only are we planning the execution of the project, we're actually planning the equipment that's going to be used in it. It's very specific, and the most important item is that it's within the parameters that are required for the use in the ports. The likes of SPMTs and other relevant equipment are also showcased within that as well. We offer comprehensive engineering drawings and really put the timelines in to match with the timelines of not only yourself, but external constraints as well. Risk assessments and method statements are put in place with the likes of LOLR, and they're in line with HSE regulations, which are very, very stringent. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, local content is key to ourselves. Anytime we work locally, we try to use local subcontractors, because the planning is so far in advance that it allows us to bring people in under a PQQ system and execute it as much within a local area as possible. We carry out crane mobilization and assembly assessments. We have on-site management, and through this we really manage the movement of cranes and equipment, because if you're moving the likes of crawler cranes and you have a pre-prepared area, you also need you need the likes of rollers, you need the likes of equipment maybe to come back behind to redress some areas. Where kilonewton per meter squared falls below the requirement, we offer effective matting systems, and this basically dissipates the load off or within the port for the likes of heavy usage and craneage as well. We do offer a consultancy service on this for the pre-mechanical side, and I suppose this really scales up to a hub management where, liaising directly with yourselves as a tier 1 client, we can then pass that down through the rest of the tiers. We carry out ongoing liaisons with the relevant stakeholders, and key and front of this is the initial site evaluation and reporting. Next slide there, please, Jack. So we have turnkey heavy solutions. So this is carried out through the identification initially, so constructability studies, and the most important really there is in line with port constraints. So any constraints that you have, we recognize from this initial constructability study, and we take it really into the next phase, which is into preparation. So we look at the engineering drawings, we'll do transport planning, swept path analysis. So we look at the likes of the equipment we're going to use, if it's SPMTs, anything like that, and we'll analyze what you have locally, just as some of the other key stakeholders before me described. We will look at the likes of the piling on the quay walls, and we'll use that within a constraint for the lifting. We also need to look at the likes of the vessels that will be required. So if you're going to have a barge or you're going to have a geared vessel, potentially that will not be a problem. But if you're going to carry out loading from the port, that needs to be analysed well in advance as well. Through the execution of it, we mobilise all our equipment to site. We have on-site management, and we manage fully the movement of the cranes internally and externally out of the port. And what we do then is we close out and we give you a full evaluation, and we really get the input from yourselves. Next slide there, please, Jack. So the advisory service, so through the crane selection, we would look at the likes of vessel location, quay walls, and really the tonnage of equipment that's going to be required. We look at the equipment and the port setup. So we make an assessment if you're going to have the likes of ro-ro equipment, if it's going to be geared, if you're going to need the likes of teleporters, heavy lifts, SPMTs, lorries, and potentially reach stackers within that there as well. The services to redress areas are important, because there is, if you're using the likes of crawler cranes, you are going to chew up a certain amount of the area. It has to be redressed back to a specific quality that it's suitable for the likes of lorries and SPMTs to come in, and also for underfooting for the likes of our technicians who would be on site. What we have with the planning is we plan with the heavy lift area, so we have lifting studies that are in line with the local requirements, and these are fluid, so they move as the project moves on. And you're looking at the likes of tidal movements, because that there is going to give the target within the schedule. Then we have vessel selection, the tower pack planning, particularly for offshore, because with the tower packs you could have 4, you could have 6, or in some cases you could have the likes of 12. And as you go out from the likes of 4, it gives a little bit of potentially an issue if you're not planning for the Chinese hats that may be used on the likes of some of these equipment. We then look at the likes of obviously ground testing, and we make a comparable back with that. If you could move on to the next slide, please, Jack. Thank you. Next slide there, please, Jack. Hello, Jack.
Not sure what's happened there, Gavin. Okay, I think we're
Jack,
good.
Hello, you got me? Sorry, Jack, could you move on to the next slide there? Sorry, guys. I think there's an internet issue on my side. Next slide there. Next slide there, please, Jack, if you would.
Oh, Jack, might be having lost connection there. I think I'm back though.
Oh.
Apologies. You see that there?
Yes, I can.
We need a next slide, Jack, please. So current slide is heavy lift advisory service, and we need the next slide after that one, please.
Um, yeah, there we go. That should do it there.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
Perfect.
So we have an integrated or SHEQ management system. So we have ISO 9001, 14001, and 45001. And we were there were two companies that were awarded 45001 within the same month, and we were one of the first globally to achieve that. Next slide there, please, Jack. So why would you work with us? Well, what we do is we risk your exposure with our experienced team, and we take responsibility really for the management and performance of people and equipment. So we offer really a lump sum package. That's what you get. And with that lump sum package, you know the cost before really any of the projects or any of the timelines would start. Your time and cost become our own. So basically, we work on a partnership agreement, and as I mentioned at the very start, it's a trusted partnership. We try to save time and money, and we want to be a one-stop shop really for the likes of your heavy lift requirements, be they with your port cranes or cranes that we would bring in potentially externally. We want to eliminate any issues through detailed lift planning, method statements, and risk assessments, and we want to give you some peace of mind for working with our team. Next slide there, please, Jack. So this is some of the ports that we've worked on globally. We've worked in Barbados, we've worked in Belfast, Boston, Bremerhaven, and you can see the list there right down through Dublin and Greenore. Currently, as I said, we are working in Egypt. We just finished in Tangier in Morocco. We have our team then, they're going over to Malta at the moment, and we're executing a project right now, or 3 projects in Australia. And really it's a construction of the Lever LLC cranes, who we're a trusted partner with globally. So that gives us a unique advantage, because we've worked so much all over the world. We know quite well the likes of the requirements for local contact or local content, and it's quite a high target for ourselves. You'll see there as well, we work with the Irish Navy headquarters in Haulbowline. And with that there, it just shows the trust that's given to us when we have the local Navy that's working with us there as well. If we could move on to the next slide there, please, Jack. This gives a little snapshot of where we are globally. So we're present extensively within Europe, as you can see there. We are based in North America as well. We have offices in Princeton in North America to really assist with the requirements there. We're in South America as well, Africa, and the Middle East. And we're in Australia just quite recently, only about 2 weeks ago. We won 3 projects over there. So next slide there, please, Jack. Jack, could we get the next slide there, please?
Sorry, Gavin, we seem to be having a little glitch at the moment.
No, look, it is no problem at all. It's no problem at all.
While we're waiting for that slide, Gavin, out of curiosity, one of the things we're seeing in the offshore wind industry are bigger and bigger blades and larger components. I'm just wondering, does that pose a challenge in terms of cranes and crane technology? Are crane manufacturers kind of looking at those and developing new crane systems to cope with them?
Yeah, really, we're running, I suppose, we're running fast towards a pinch point with the size of cranes. Typically, when I started in the industry, looking at craneage and renewables, it was 600 megawatt or 600 kilowatt machines we were looking at. Now we're looking at up on 18 megawatts, and it's just massive, the changes that have occurred. and craneage is struggling with the size and the increased size of the turbines. So turbines are being broken into smaller pieces, which makes it much easier to actually build. But on top of that as well, we're looking at the likes of constraints, because as you look for the larger cranes, you don't have as many of them globally. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword there at the moment. But the likes of Liebherr, DMAG, and the various other manufacturers front and foremost, because it's such a high target industry that they're looking at it.
Okay, yeah, I think you have your last slide or two there now, Gavin.
Yeah, pretty much so. Look, as with all companies, front and foremost is health and safety. We have an extensive health and safety department. Mark Murphy, our health and safety officer, has worked globally. He was in Saudi for about 5 years, and really brings extensive knowledge. We are problem solvers, and we firmly believe in teamwork, and innovation is really in our DNA. And as you can tell, probably with a lot of the people before and myself, we're very passionate about the likes of this, and we want to execute the project with you and execute it really from start to finish, and to be a trusted partner. So next slide there, please. These are some of the really manufacturers and companies that we've worked with extensively, the likes of Res, Siemens, you see Vestas, and really this is kind of testament to the company that we are, and we'd be delighted to add yourselves to this list at some stage. Next slide there, please. I think that's the last one. And Liam, thank you very much for the platform again, and Jack, and back over to you guys.
No, that's great. Thanks, Gavin. And again, we're tight on time. So, Jack, I think we'll head straight to NetFasa, please.
Yep. Thanks very much. Apologies for the internet issues. I think they should be solved now. And we would like to move on to NetFasa, as Liam said, and to Ian. Ian is there.
Do we have Ian?
Hello,
Yeah.
Ian?
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
I was muted there. I was already waiting and started speaking, and of course I was still muted. So I'd just like to thank Enterprise Ireland for organising this presentation and inviting NetFasa to present our solution. And if you could move on to the next slide, please, Jack. So NetFasa is a company that has been incorporated 5 years ago. The founders of the company and our principal team members all have been in the cellular communications industry for 30 odd years or more. And we have a lot of experience in deploying solutions in challenging environments. So we deployed in previous companies GSM systems on 500 container ships that were primarily for crew calling. We were also involved in installing GSM systems on 60 cruise ships with WMS, which was part owned by AT&T in the US. We were also involved in the installation of the first cellular systems on aircraft with Aeromobile. And we've been working closely with them over the last 15 years or so in the deployment of these 2G systems, the upgrade of them to 3G, and more recently we've worked with them to deploy an Ericsson virtualized core network to support their future growth into 4G and 5G, and to enable them to efficiently support IoT services as well as broadband communications, whether that's 4G or Wi-Fi or 5G, to passengers on the aircraft. We've also been involved in deploying GSM and 3G Wi-Fi solutions in remote communities. So we deployed these systems in Malaysia and Indonesia, and also in some remote mining communities as well. So not only has this been used for serving the unserved population, some of the 3 billion that don't have connectivity today, but it's also been used for commercial deployments as well. In terms of NetFaster today, our recent commercial deployments, we've been focusing on IoT, both unlicensed band IoT using LARA technology, and also licensed band using cellular technology such as narrowband IoT and LTE Cat-M. And we've been deploying these solutions in North America and European ports for a North American shipping company, and we still work within the global aviation business for connectivity in providing consultancy services to some of our customers. Next slide, please, Jack. So rather than talking, providing a lot of words in our presentation, we've tried to keep it on specific use cases. And during the presentations from the previous 4 companies, they've talked a lot about ports, for how you assist the customers for ships docking, moving materials around the ports. But one key area of technology that's going to be really important for freeports is going to be tracking these assets. So where you have a solution where the freeport radius is going to be 45 kilometers, you're going to need to make sure that there is technology available that can track not only large components coming into the port and then moving into the freeport area, but also smaller components, which are then going to go to factories within the freeport, going to be assembled into finished components, and those components are going to then exit the freeport as well. So there needs to be a capability to track these components, whether they're large components or small components, to make sure that they don't leave the freeport area. And if they do leave the freeport area, then there's a notification that's sent out so that the customers, the excise, can then track that as a taxable transaction. And the diagram here is showing specifically the use case for a wind farm application where we're tracking large components such as blades, towers, and the nacelles as they come into the yard. And what we're showing here is that the ability to track these components, not necessarily tracking the component itself, but using the vehicle that's moving the component to track the asset. So what we've deployed for our customers is a very accurate GPS system. So it uses RTK to enhance the signals coming from the GNSS network, whether it's GPS, Galileo, Bedour, it doesn't matter. And enhancing those signals, providing correction factors so that you can improve the accuracy of the GPS position down to centimeter accuracy. So that allows us to accurately track components as they're moved around either a yard or the port. And it makes it a lot more efficient because we don't have to install GPS devices and all the components. We can just put RFID tags on the components themselves, and as the blade mover comes along to move that blade, we trigger an RFID read, which is then associated with the blade mover, and then we track the blade mover as it moves around the yard, and therefore we can track the start location and the final location of the blade. And this can be enhanced using breadcrumb tracking. We can also set up geofence areas so that as the component moves in and out of the geofence area, then we can generate alarms and events and incorporate that data into the company's BSS and OSS systems. Next slide, please, Jack. So further to the blade example on the previous slide, we have deployed solutions for tracking components, whether they're containers in both ports and on ships. So currently today we're providing solutions for a large US shipping company where we are tracking the reefers on the ship. So the reefer has a monitoring device in it that is providing temperature measurements, alarms and events, and you can remotely reset the temperature on the device from the cloud. And these systems require the installation, in this case, of a LoRa network on the ship to provide connectivity for these reefers once the ship leaves the port. And this is important today, as we're talking a lot about the release of the COVID and approval of the COVID-19 vaccines and some of the challenges of monitoring the vaccine as it moves from the factory to the hospitals, because these vaccines have to be stored at a very low temperature, and therefore it's essential to make sure that the end-to-end cold chain is monitored. So from the factory to the lorry, to the ship, whether it's a ship or a ferry, and then back onto land and to the distribution center, and finally to the hospital, and to provide the capability for an end-to-end monitoring of the system wherever that vaccine is on its journey. And therefore there's a requirement to have solutions not only in the ports and on land, but also on ships and ferries as well. And that is what we can offer to our customers today. Next slide, please, Jack. And this example here is for a solution that we provided for a customer in North America again, where we were tracking their chassis. So in the US, because there's more land available in most of the ports, they have this concept of a wheeled port where containers, as they come into the port, are moved around on chassis. They're not necessarily stacked as in European and Middle Eastern ports. They remain on the chassis from the time that it arrives in the port till the time that it's actually loaded on the ship. And therefore they have a lot of these chassis on site in the port, and they had no way of efficiently tracking where those chassis were when they were not being used. So the terminal operating system that they were using, which is currently using RFID to track those the containers as they come in the port. So they know where the containers are, and they can monitor those containers as they arrive in the port to the point where they're loaded onto the ship, but they couldn't actually track the chassis themselves, and therefore they had no idea where all the chassis were. So they came to us, and we provided the solution where, again, we were using GPS with RTK to provide correction signals to give us centimeter accuracy. And then we would put an RFID tag on the chassis and an RFID reader on the UTR that was moving the chassis around. So we would track the UTR and by extension be able to track the chassis. So we would have an RFID read on the tag on the chassis when the UTR backed up to it to pick it up, and then we would associate the chassis with the UTR and then track the UTR as it moved around the yards. And then when it stopped and dropped off the chassis, then we would be able to say, okay, this is the final position of that chassis, and we could then show where the chassis was at any time within the yards. We can give them data of the usage of the chassis and the occupancy of bays and everything. So we were doing a lot of data analytics to provide this information to the customer. Next slide, please, Jack. And in summary, what we're offering here is a portfolio of services. So we provide connectivity, and that connectivity can be either unlicensed band technology using LARA, or it can be licensed band technology using cellular narrowband IoT or LTE Cat-M. And the connectivity is global. So we can install the LARA technology within the port and on the ships, but the devices that we use are dual technology devices. So they'll have LARA modems as well as narrowband IoT Cat LTE-M modems installed in them. So wherever the device is and whatever technology is available, whether it's LARA or cellular, the device will be able to log on to the network. And we have global relationships with the major cellular providers such as Vodafone in Europe and AT&T in the US to provide roaming services and connectivity for our devices wherever they are in the world. And that enables us to provide a cost-effective asset tracking solution for our customers, whether it's small assets or large assets such as blades, nacelles, and towers for the wind farm industry. And the devices that we have are low cost. We are currently developing a device specifically for tracking dry containers. So today, the majority of containers that are tracked are all reefers, and the reason for that is twofold. Firstly, that the goods in the reefer normally have a higher value, and therefore the cost saving and in relation to insurance and things like that, it's easier to build a big business case. And also that the reefers, because they have power on them, you have a way of powering these devices, these tracking devices. But when you move to dry containers, it's more of a challenge because you don't have power on the container. It has to be a real low-cost solution, and you have to be able to provide a device that has a 10-year battery life. And that's what we're working on today in conjunction with the University of Cork, who are providing us with energy harvesting technology to help us get a 10-year plus battery life. And then we provide the data analytics as well. So we feed that data into the customer's existing platform, whether it's Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, any of those platforms, or we do our own analytics as well to provide custom solutions for our customers. So for example, one of our customers, we're providing a jurisdiction service so that we know when a container is handed off from the ship to the port. And this is in relation to insurance and brokerage and dryage. So
1 minute to finish, please, Ian.
Okay,
Thank you.
Just summarize. So we deliver tailored solutions to meet the individual needs of our customers, whether they're ports, shipping companies, or wind farm customers. And our uniqueness lies in the capability and intelligence of our devices and our platform. And next slide, I think should be the last slide. So just to say that Netfasa is one of the world's few licensed wireless IoT service providers that's dedicated exclusively to the supply chain and asset tracking. So we actually have a extraterrestrial cellular license from Comreg in Ireland, which gives us our own mobile network code, our own IMSI range, and our own MSI-SDN numbers that we can deploy for our customers. Thank you.
Ian, that's great. Thank you very much. I think that's a great illustration of that national IoT capability that Ireland has and can deploy for the maritime and marine sector, and increasingly indeed for offshore wind. So our thanks to Martin, Steve, Gavin, Vincent, and Ian for their presentations. As you probably realize, we've run over time a little bit, so we don't have time for questions. But if you do have questions for any of those presenters and you want more information on their skill sets or products or services, feel free to contact myself, Jack, and there's our contact details, myself, Jack, and Dara, and we'll be more than happy to put you in contact with those companies. Or indeed, if you have requirements in the marine or maritime or indeed offshore wind sectors that are outside what you've heard today, get in contact with us, because we do have additional companies with skill sets and relevant capability in the marine sector. I think that's it from us. I'm going to hand back to Jack to finish off and wrap up. Jack?
Thanks very much, Liam. And as Liam said, thanks very much to all the speakers who presented today, Martin, Steve, Vincent, Gavin, and Ian, who gave up their time today, and they gave us great insight into their plans for the ports and marine industry. Just to flag as well, our previous webinar, which was on Monday, if you missed it, the recording is available on our YouTube channel. The webinar was a discussion on the future of UK ports, and it featured Richard Ballantyne, who is the Chief Executive of the British Ports Association, Simon Brett, who's the Commercial Director at the Port of Tyne, and Alan Duncan, who is a offshore wind market expert at Scotia Supply Chain. So the link is there. We will be circulating the slides after this webinar. And if you have any questions, as Liam said, you can contact any of the three of us and we will be happy to help. That's all from us. Thank you very much for joining, and we hope to see you at the next Enterprise Ireland webinar. Thank you.
Take care, everybody, and happy Christmas. It's hopefully not too early to say that yet. Good luck.
All the very best, guys. Take care. Thank you.
Good luck.